Welcome to my new show called Two Bald Guys Misogynistically Dunk on Women. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm not bald anymore. I'm growing my hair out.
Are you growing it out?
Yeah,
I'm shaving it down.
because
So
the funny thing is I'm not actually bald, Paul. I've been shaving my head for 3 years, and it's been a fantastic social experiment. I mean, I get so much hate online from people projecting their insecurities on me, but I'm not totally bald. And so
well, I'm
I
not
figured,
either. You can actually
yeah,
see my hairline.
yeah.
So
And so I figured, you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna grab the hair, or I'm gonna grow the hair out and see what that looks like for a while. I haven't had my hair out in a long time, and see what people are gonna accuse me of having a hair transplant, I think.
yeah, that's which I'm not against either. You know, if somebody does it. I
No,
was
but
at
it's
a
funny.
crossroads because I had thinned out a little bit as I aged, but I still have I still have my hairline and I had a hair. It's just it's my sides can get thicker than my top. And
Mm.
so, you know what I mean? So like I have to just keep my sides short, which is fine because who wants long? You know, I never kept this long anyway. But if I mean, I've had hair, and I can wear my hair, but my girlfriend likes it bald. So I was just
Oh,
like,
yeah,
and
my
it's
girl,
easier for military stuff too.
my
So I'm
my
just like,
girlfriend likes it. My girlfriend likes it bald too, but for years I always kept it really short anyway, very military, high and tight. And I'm like, you know
yeah,
what? Let my hair like just grow where I can actually comb it and stuff in forever. Might as well give that a shot for a couple of years.
yeah. Yeah. Well, and there's nothing wrong like with doing like a little minoxidil or something to keep your, get your hair thicker and stuff like that. I'm good about looks maxing as long as it's like not stupid and crazy. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
It's
It's all good for me. But anyway, so we're here. We're not actually going to dunk on women, but we are going to teach everybody here in my audience how to keep a girl. And we're going to reference to your new book, Keep Your Bitch. Okay. Which is lovely. Lovely title to grab all of the people who's never heard of such a thing. But it's an interesting. So I read. I'll give my little intro on it because I read the book over the weekend. Read meaning audio booked it. Luckily, I had a drive to Chicago area from Michigan and came back, so I had plenty of time to digest it. And I think that there's a lot of value in it in a way that I'm going to explain how one of my coaching clients explained it when he talked about the Zoom calls we do for coaching, right? So like, just like you have your wolf pack, like we have our thing, we meet every week and we just sort of talk about spitball and solve problems. And usually I'm, doing some sort of a presentation. And one of the guys who's been with me for a few years, he's doing really well. Has does really well financially. He increased his value financially from our coaching. He, does well with women, has a girlfriend, is doing everything right. It's like he doesn't really technically need to be in the group, so to speak, in the sense that he has a problem to solve, but he just likes showing up. And he commented like, it's I get to take my medicine every week. And it was like, that's interesting. What do you mean? He's like, what, explain that further for the guys. Right. And he said,
Mhm.
yeah, so I'm taking my medicine every week. It's just that I know that there are so many messages out there that are anti-success for men. Like there's so much conditioning and it's so subtle that you're getting inundated with nothing but messages that are going to make you weaker, make you less resilient, make you not focused on being a positive masculine force in your life and in the life of others. There's all kinds of things out there, and most of it's bad. Even your friends and your family are poorly socially conditioned, and the way that they just talk about life is going to get into your brain and cause you to start making mistakes, doing dumb things, falling back into being less resilient, less dominant, less disciplined, less of a decision maker. And he's like, I just come in because by listening to everybody and hearing all this stuff over and over again, or just every now and then, just listen to a video or something like that. Like that is my medicine. That keeps me, that's the positive masculine identity stuff that I need to hear in order to be successful. And so when I read your book, that was what I was thinking. I'm like, this is a good book for somebody to just put in their car, put on audio or read in meditation if you like to read, and just read it for or listen for 20, 25 minutes a day and do that for like 6 months. You know what I mean? It's like there's a bunch of things in the book that are all good things. They all make sense. Some of these things are things that guys in our audience has heard before. Many of them they've heard before, but you need to still hear it again and hear it again and hear it again because you're getting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, nothing but terrible messages infiltrated into your brain. So this is one of those books that I co-sign, get it and read it 10 to 15 times to steal that from Corey Wayne. That's fine. And you said that in your book too. And I think that's good advice. You know what I mean? Now, I don't know if that was your intent for the book, but that's the way I read it. So
No, that is it. And in fact, ever since the second book, the Psychology Paradigm book, I've been really stealing that idea of read the book 10 to 15 times from Corey. But I also learned that from Bob Proctor, and I've practiced it myself.
Yeah.
You know, when I was learning Corey Wayne stuff, I read his book. I've read his book 24 times now, or mostly listened to it on Audible. But what I found is that just listening to a good book that you really want to, master, listening to it on repeat, reading it on repeat, fundamentally will change your paradigm about a lot of this stuff. And like you were saying, we're constantly inundated with negative programming. You can't undo 20, 30, 40 years of bad relationship programming just by reading a book once,
Right.
And so if you really want to make it a part of who you are going to want to revisit it. Now, there's other guys in the space, some of our colleagues too, well, they'll say, hey, take what you need from Red Pill or from the, men's relationship space and get out. Like, okay, I can understand not wanting to, consume this content constantly, because some of the content in the space is just absolute horse shit. You know what I mean? But some of it, even if it's good content, focusing on, especially like whenever we talk negatively about women, it doesn't help you. So it's at least revisiting stuff from an audiobook standpoint once a year, and then living your life is good too. But you've got to reinforce those new neural pathways, right? Because those old neural pathways never fully go away. And if you don't reinforce this stuff, you're going to fall back on those old patterns. So
yeah, no, that's exactly right. I would say, as far as getting out, it's more like be a passive consumer instead of, so you don't need to be like super active and on every forum trying to overanalyze every situation. Once you sort of have, the program for your own life and you're executing it, you don't necessarily need to be like, having it like your passion, so to speak, if you're a normal guy. But I think you do need to, revisit these concepts and ideas. I think if you don't, it's like going to church, if you don't, you're going to fall off. I mean, that is just a reality. So, and that doesn't mean they got to necessarily spend big money on it, although those who are very successful do spend big money on it because they know it's an ROI on that. There's a return on in their investment when they spend money on things like coaching or getting into a group. But just like I said, having a book or, having some YouTube videos that are not what the algorithm feeds you, but what you want to consume because it's good for you, and revisit those things. I mean, we should be doing a mental health, and I say, inner game practice every single day. I like the words inner game rather than mental health because, you want to be more than just, not diagnosable as a psychiatric condition. You know what I mean? You want to actually thrive mentally. And so I like the term inner game a little bit better. And we work out our bodies like several times in the book. You referenced going to the gym, working out, which is a good reference. I co-sign that. I agree. And we have to do the same for our brains. And that could look like different things to different people. Some people like meditation, some don't. Some people like journaling, some don't. Some people like to do active walking and thought visualization and, problem solving that way. Some people like to sit, somewhere where in silence or in contemplation. There's all kinds of different stuff you can do, but you have to do it. And it's all there to make your mind mentally resilient. But I think that part of that practice is your consumption. And we have to consume things that are good for our brains. And your book is definitely one of those things, which is the purpose of us having this little stream here so we can tell everybody about it. Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things that it's an easy thing to do and it'll help them. So I want to just kind of dive in. We'll pivot a little bit. Let's dive into just a little bit of your origin story. I know you've told it before, but maybe not everybody on my channel got the word on that. So what was your evolution into where you're at now, writing this book? You've written several other books before, you know what I mean? And I'm going to botch the titles, but your advice to your 18-year-old self was the one. And then, I don't know. It was. I know there's a dread book and a get bitches book or something. And then there's
all my books are get bitches books. Are you serious? Like, come on.
Right. This one's keep the bitches.
Yeah. Well, you know that bastard Ryan Stone. He says that you're not an actual author until you've written 3 books, and so now I have 5 books, so I'm officially an author according to Ryan Stone's.
So there's 3. I think there's 4.
Yeah, and that's really what I'm working towards is Ryan Stone standards. So
yes, we all are.
Yeah, it's hard to live up to that guy's standard. He's got another book coming out now. I think he's got 8 books now. That's crazy.
He bangs them out. Yeah, I'm working on 1 book right now, and I'm a perfectionist in a bad way, so it's going to take me a little bit.
Yeah, you got to just write it and let the editor deal with the nonsense. That's the trick to it, right? Yeah. So my Batman origin story. For guys that don't know me, Paul and I go way back though. Paul was the first, sort of guy in the, the men's sphere that was on my channel, and he talked to me and broke down the concept of red pill when I still thought red pill was a bad thing,
So
that was Paul that sort of woke me up from that. But nice. Yeah, what happened, what got me into the space was I was married for 14 years. And before that, I was pretty good with girls already. Like in high school, I lost my virginity at 16. I went to 4 different proms. I always had girlfriends, but I always had that sniper dating mentality when it came to women. Just every girl that was nice to me, I'd go all in on the one girl, and just she was the one. And, and I was always running for that white picket fence. And I ended up joining the Navy when I was 18. In my second year in the Navy, I met my now ex-wife. I went home on leave. I met her through mutual friends, guys that I went to high school with. She was going to college with. And I met her at a party. We hit it off. And we had this long distance relationship for almost a year before I convinced her to move out to San Diego with me. And so she moved out to San Diego. We got a 1-bedroom apartment together, and within 3 months we eloped, just because one, I was running for that white picket fence, and 2, I was in the military, and you get extra BAH when you're married, right?
You gotta get that BAH, bro.
Yeah, and then I was also getting ready to go on a 3-month training exercise called Rim Pack, and then I was going to come back for a month and then be gone for.
This does sound like a Navy thing.
Rim pack, yeah. Anything with pack in it's really gay, right? But no. So then I came back for a month, and I was gone for 6 months on a deployment to the Middle East. And so the first 9 months of our marriage, I wasn't even home, And luckily, our marriage was okay up for the first half of it, and we ended up having 2 wonderful kids. But the last half of it was just absolutely miserable. I basically allowed myself to become Al Bundy. I was just a plow horse. I gained a lot of weight. And we had basically a dead bedroom situation, but there was also nights where I just didn't like her either. And so I'd much rather go out to the garage and grab a cot and go sleep in my office than spend any time with her, But right. I was also the guy that never would have quit, because I made vows, and you get married and you have kids, you end up becoming miserable. And I thought that's just how life was supposed to be.
Right.
And thank God in 2014, we moved back to Colorado as a part of her exit strategy. I didn't know that at the time, but we moved back to Colorado, and she waited until January 2014 to file for divorce because the new alimony formula kicked in Colorado, and she was trying to get the maximum amount of alimony out of me. And so in 2014, I found myself back on the dating circuit after 15 years of being completely out of practice. I was 50 pounds overweight, and I just floundered on the dating circuit for like pretty much that whole year. And 11 months after the separation, I met a girl that I call Red Pill Chick, and she was a little bit of a chubby chaser, and she was super forward, which I needed at the time because I was too afraid to make a move, and
she was the red pilling. She's the one who actually red pilled you. So
she's the one that actually red pilled me. Yeah. So, cause I at that point I was like, yeah, I don't think I'll ever get married again, but I just haven't found the one, and so I made Red Pill Chick. I get in this relationship that I probably shouldn't have been in. She had lots of problems and stuff like that, but I overlooked all of them because I was madly in love. And I immediately went back into what I call husband mode, where I just immediately was like, okay, I don't have to try anymore. I can relax now. And I ended up losing the weight, but within 2 years of that relationship, she mentally checked out. And so she kept me around for another 2 years before she started acting so bad that I finally broke up with her. And it turns out at the end, she was cheating on me, And so, so I found
we always got to do one of those or two of those.
Yeah. I mean,
20 of those in my case, maybe.
I don't have hard evidence on it, but it's just her behavior was, everything we've learned in the space, there was so much circumstantial evidence that's like, dude, she had to have been.
Yeah,
she had to.
It's like, sure.
Yeah. And so I find myself back on the dating circuit again this time, but this time I'm 50 pounds, lighter. I'm in much better shape. I'm able to get dates like no problem now. And I'm like, this night and day, this is great. But I still was repelling women. I couldn't keep women around longer than 2 or 3 dates. A fourth date would have been a miracle, And I finally was just like, what am I doing wrong here? I'm clearly not doing something right. The 2 biggest relationships of my adult life failed. I'm repelling women. I'm clearly the common denominator.
Yeah.
And so I started doing a deep dive into all this stuff. And that's where I found, Dr. Robert Glover and Corey Wayne and Christopher Canwell and Rollo and all you guys on at that time, the Rule Zero panel at that time.
Much different panel at that time.
Yeah, much different panel at that time. And so I started, studying this stuff. I started practicing this stuff, finding out a lot of this stuff worked. I sort of took what worked for me and what didn't, made my own sort of Kung Fu style. And and then I started my podcast because I was in a group of men that we were all studying Corey Wayne stuff, and I started my podcast out of that.
Yeah.
And then that podcast led to me meeting you and then the rest of the Rule Zero guys at that time. And then I eventually got invited on the panel, and then I had to write a book, because everyone's got a book, and
yeah.
And here I am, 5 books later. Yeah.
Nice. Well, good. Yeah, it's good. So I want to go revisit. Let's revisit husband mode. I like that. How you said that, because that's a really common thing where guys default into a particular mode of thinking and behaving that ends up being like the antithesis of what it takes to keep your bitch, to use the title. So let's revisit that a little bit, because like, why do you think for you that happened? Like you got married and you kind of defaulted into the common thing of husband mode. Then Red Pill Chick happened again, but then you had that awakening of like not to do that. Now you're different, now you got Nurse Chick, and it's been a while that you've been with her, and there is no defaulting to this pacified version of yourself that ends up being unattractive, right? That doesn't happen now. So why do you think, like, what's the origins of that for you? Like, why do you think that pattern was there? And then what did you do to break that pattern?
Yeah. So I think it's a very common problem with a lot of guys. They think that they've reached some mythical finish line. So for some guys, the finish line is, I got a girlfriend, right?
Yep.
Like the dating circuit, I have to put all this work in, then I get a girlfriend. Now I can relax.
Yep.
Some guys they don't get that way because their ultimate end state is marriage, right? So they're like,
Mhm.
oh, it's not real unless you've got a ring on it. And so then once they put that ring on it, now they think I've reached this finish line. And I think that's just where my mindset was. It was
Yep.
always the fact that once you have a girlfriend, and then you eventually get married, that's the finish line. And then you get to, you don't have to try anymore because she's already in love with you, and that love is just going to be static forever.
Right.
And,
It's
and
it's 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 a static thing. Yeah.
it's
That's
just
the myth.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just not true. It's
No.
it's just
No,
not
it's not.
true. And I didn't realize that though,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
And
of
so
course.
and
Yeah, I mean,
so
we're all guilty of it.
and most guys don't, and that's why it's funny because my the first book in the Red Pill Guide series is called "Get Her to Fuck You Again,"
Yeah,
and
that's the one. That's one.
yeah,
That's the title I couldn't remember.
it's always that one's, that's about you're in a marriage and it's gone downhill and
Yep.
basically the spark's gone, and you're, if you're lucky, you might have sex like once a month, right?
That's the script that everyone's following. I would
Right.
say 80% of these marriages seem to be following that script.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You did a video the other day on how like what we think is the success rate is even worse than we even imagined or
Yes.
whatever. Right? That was a great
Right.
video, but
Thank you. Thank you.
but um but yeah, and but that's the thing is a lot of guys think that's normal. They think that's
Yep.
just how it is because that's what society shows us, right? You look at TV and they're programming us to be Al Bundy and you're supposed to be miserable.
Right.
That's how my parents' relationship is. My parents just celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary. They hate each other, you
Yep.
know, and
Mhm.
that's just normal. And so if you look at your dads and your uncles and your grandparents, that's how life is supposed to be. And you
Right.
just think that's normal. And so you end up doing the same thing. And we learn our relationships basically from our
Yep.
parents,
Yep. Our
And
parents and other people around us. Absolutely.
so I fell victim to that too. And it wasn't
Yep.
until after Red Pill Chick that I realized this is what I've been doing wrong this whole
Mhm.
time, is resting on my laurels, thinking that I don't have to try anymore.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's I think that's a really good story and a backstory there to explain that because guys need to hear it. Because I think you highlighted something that's really important is the idea of a finish line. I think that is a important part of the mental model that guys have. Like we're naturally driven to be goal oriented. And so the idea is, well, I'm going to put in a bunch of hardship and work and then I'm going to get the goal and then I just get to be like, "Oh, I made it." And so like the male fantasy that's promoted out there is that you do all this stuff in order to make it, whether
Mhm.
it's the American dream or whether it's have owning your own company or whatever, or having a particular business or having the wife, the kids, the picket fence. It's like every fantasy story, that's a positive story ends with a guy having made it after a hardship. That's the hero's journey. You go through hardship and a fight and a struggle to make it at the end, and that's the illusion, is that you made it. Now you can get fat. Like
Yeah.
you can stop handling problems like a dominant man now because she loves you. You can just sort of become a passive participant in your sexual relationship versus somebody who's actively driving that relationship forward for the next 20, 30 years. If you're in an LTR that's going to last that long, that's this idea of having made it or hitting that finish line. It's promoted and sold as part of a hero's journey, and it is really a part of the cause, I think, for guys to destroy themselves in their marriages, because that's what happens. They say the magic words, or like you said, maybe it's the guy who gets the girlfriend. There's some point where they go, "Oh, I made it," and then they just sort of stop doing the things and being the person. That's more
Mhm.
important. They stop being the person that they were when they were on that journey and in that struggle in order to make it. And I think a better model is just kind of goes back to the old saying, don't ask for to not have any problems, just ask for better problems. I think a better model is that you are you are content in the struggle, because if you're breathing, there's some struggle you're going to have every single day. There should be. If there's not, you're probably not getting any better. You're probably not advancing your life. You're probably not, you're probably on the road to dying rather than living a better life if there isn't, some small, whether it's some sort of struggle every day. The difference is the struggle isn't going to be, oh, I think my girlfriend's cheating on me and she has borderline personality disorder. The struggle is more like, oh, like, where are we going on vacation next month? Because I just got a bonus because I worked really hard in my business. And oh, my girlfriend is having this little inner crisis and she's kind of acting a little bit bitchy because of it. So now I have to sort of have a conversation with her and execute my frame and remind her of who she is. Like, these are the struggles. The struggles are good struggles to have versus bad struggles when guys are really like suffering,
Yeah.
So yeah. And I think, referencing that book again, that's what I thought of when I was reading through it or listening to it, is that this is going to help guys, sort of remind themselves that they have to show up and be the guy.
Mhm.
The guy that you were when you got the girl is you have to be an advanced version of that guy in the relationship, because she may love you in a sense of maybe you're her hypergamous best. So she thinks, she's been imprinted in that way, but her desire for you is not a permanent state. And when guys think about love, they correlate that directly to the girl feeling desire for him, not just having like pity for him or being like, I love him, but he's stupid and can't do anything right. Like,
Yeah.
that's not the vision for a man. A vision for a man is a woman who admires, respects, and desires him as part of that love. And if you guys want that, you have to maintain it by being that guy. And that's what this book really does. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So go
One
ahead.
of the things just to give the biggest spoiler of the book away, because the title is called Keep Your Bitch. But one of the things that I get to later in the book is based on Breifeld's law. It's a woman's job to keep you, because it's
Yeah.
all up to the woman whether the relationship's going to take place or not based on Breifeld's law. And if
Right.
that's the case, then it's her job to keep you. So that means that it's your job to be a man worth keeping.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of what's in the book too is about always keeping your ambition levels going. Like it's not just about the relationship, it's about you always working on the next level of like your career, what you're, things that you got going on, and being that interesting guy that you were in the beginning. Because a lot of women will get with a poor guy if she smells that ambition, because they can
Mm-hmm.
smell ambition like sharks smell blood.
Oh
Right.
yeah.
So if you can be that guy even later in the relationship where you're always trying to get to that next thing, women still find that attractive and exciting because they want to join your lifestyle.
Yeah.
And when I'm coaching one-on-one dead bedroom clients, a lot of my clients are guys who got to a position in their career and they're like, I'm happy here. And they've been stuck like that for 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And their wives have surpassed them in their careers. Now are looking at their husbands like, you're just a bump on the log. Like, what are you even doing? And a lot of guys will equate that with money, because a lot of guys' minds just go to money. It's not about the money. It's the complete, utter lack of ambition
Yeah.
that, because you've reached the magical finish line. It works.
Mm-hmm.
It happens in your career, in your fitness, in your inner game work, all that kind of stuff. Guys think that they've reached some kind of finish line. It's like the work never stops. And that's really one of the things I want to hammer home in the book.
Yeah. Well, sure. And I think that guys need to get to a place of intrinsically rewarding work versus looking for that extrinsic reward. You know what I mean? And getting to a place where, there's like, there's such a thing as rest and recover, obviously. But like, if I'm resting, recovering for too long, I'm like looking for a job to do. Do you know what I mean? And I
Mm-hmm.
think that that's a positive thing. I feel a sense of reward by putting effort towards something, and it doesn't. And It's absent of the goal. It almost doesn't matter what the goal is. I mean, obviously, I want to be smart and put that tendency of wanting to put effort into something. I want to be smart about that and put the effort towards something that's going to advance my life or be good for me. But that being said, though, it's really just about feeling a sense of reward for doing work and putting in effort. And I think a lot of guys live their whole life avoiding that.
Mm.
You know, it's not that they don't work hard, because they'll be in a job working hard, but that they're working hard for a reward at the end. They're working hard to lay on the couch on Sundays and watch sports, or to go drinking with the boys on Friday, or whatever it is, you know, to buy the next thing, and then, or to take the next vacation. And it keeps them a slave. That's for sure. You know what I mean? It does work for that, keeps them laboring and enslaving, because they're not happy. So they're always trying to achieve something outside of themselves to sort of reach that level of that contentment. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I think the secret is to find that contentment within the labor itself, whatever that is. And now what changes for a guy is he's the competition now. Like, my girlfriend has to compete with me as a single guy by myself.
Mm.
As a single guy by myself, my life is awesome. Like, I am not like, I need a girlfriend, I need a wife. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I have so much stuff to do. I enjoy doing it. I have so many goals to achieve, so many experiences to have. I need to make these experiences happen, right? And so for a girl to come in my life, she has to be better than that.
Mm-hmm.
She's not competing with other women. She's competing with me by myself at all times. So now she's earning the relationship. Now she has to be like, how can I complement this guy's life and also be a part of his life, because everything he's doing is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even if he's broke or whatever, you know, it was, even if a guy is not, I'm not saying stay broke, right? But even if a guy isn't quite where he wants to be financially or logistically or whatever, but he enjoys his life, he has intrinsic reward for what he's doing. He conveys that with his communication with everybody, because of his attitude, his behavior, and then he's achieving stuff in life and really enjoying it. A girl has to compete with that. She has to compete with that attention. It's different kind of dread than, oh, you know, the waitress looked at him or whatever, which is, that's
Yeah.
fine too. But
Yeah. Well, I get into that because that's, I mean, that's essentially passive dread, right? Like
right.
that's, and that's, which I
Talk about
prefer.
that in the book.
I talk about passive dread in the book because that's really, it's just you're always working towards that next level. And she sees a go-getter. And when a guy's a go-getter and he happens to also be socially charming enough that when he's at the supermarket talking to the cashier, and the cashier's laughing at all of his dumb jokes and stuff like that, like she sees all this stuff. She sees all of her competition. She's like, damn it, this guy's got something going on. I want to be a part of this life.
Yeah.
Like, right. That's passive dread. And you're not doing anything wrong. That's what I love about passive dread, because it's not all toxic.
Yeah, it's not this toxic manipulation stuff, right? Well, yeah, and I delineate it in 4 ways. I have passive, active, dread in my definitions there. Passive is you're not doing anything to inspire dread. You're just being you, and it's being inspired. And then of course, active dread is where you do actively do something.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, okay, she's acting out of pocket. I'm going to go out with my friends and tell her I'll talk to her later. That creates an active dread. But then there's I look at it, positive and negative dread. Positive is like, you go out, take a girl out on a date, you blow her mind, she passes out from orgasms, all those things happen, and she's like, holy shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you go about your life, right? And so then it's like, I just had my mind blown. How do I show up and be the girl that this guy wants to keep?
Mm-hmm.
How do I, that's a positive dread, meaning that she has such positive experiences with you and a positive association with you that it makes her a little bit anxious. And she says, how can I show up and like be a compliment to this guy? Am I good enough? Essentially is a question she has to ask. The negative dread is more like, okay, inspiring negative emotions, like feelings of he might leave me if I keep acting like this.
What's like,
you know what I mean?
My first understanding of dread came from Christopher Canwell's book, Atomic Attraction, which is a phenomenal book, but his stuff on dread is
funny.
It's absolute garbage, right? But one of the things that he talks about is posting pictures online of like, you go to a bar
Yeah.
and you take a picture of like a beer next to like a margarita,
Uh-huh.
and you take that picture, like you order both drinks, but you take that picture and put it online very ambiguously, like I might be out with another chick. Right.
Mhm.
Or he says you go to like a place like Macy's and spray on women's perfume very
Yeah.
subtly, and then come home and let her smell the other women's perfume on you.
That
And
would
then
be active negative dread.
and
Yes.
I'm like, it's like, man, it's so unnecessary to do all that stuff
Yeah,
when you
I
could
agree.
just be a fucking awesome guy, you know?
Yep. Yep. No, exactly. Exactly. And so, yeah, the concept of dread really makes women uncomfortable, but I think it makes it uncomfortable because they know it's true, you know.
Yeah.
They
Well, I mean,
know they get anxious.
it is designed to make them a little uncomfortable, because if they're too comfortable, then they start getting complacent themselves, and they're like, I don't have to try. I already got this guy, and
Yep.
you
Well,
know,
yeah, it's the nature of being invested in a relationship is not wanting to lose that relationship. That those two things just psychologically go together. And women are naturally more anxious and risk averse than men. So just her being in a good relationship inspires dread.
mhm,
And if she's not having some dread a little bit naturally, then that means her desire has gone down.
yeah.
Like that's just how it is. Like a
It,
woman, yeah,
I just want to add to that. I mean, a lot of guys help that process along, thinking they're being the nice guy by
yep,
constantly reassuring her, "I'll never
yes,
cheat on you, honey. I'll never cheat." Oh, that girl looked at me. Well, I would never, honey. Like you got to let her think. Well, I might, even
yeah.
if you wouldn't, I
Well,
might.
and my thing is like I'm not listen. If I want to fuck somebody else and you're not going to be the person that fucks her with me, then I'm just going to dump you.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, if it comes to that, I will never cheat on you. If it comes to that, we're breaking up. So don't worry, you
Yeah.
know?
Don't
And then
worry
she's
about it.
just
Yeah.
sitting there like, don't worry, what the fuck? That sounds worse, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so but it is important that they have a feeling of not wanting to lose you. You know what I mean? In some
Yeah.
sense, if they don't have that, it doesn't mean that they walk around excessively anxious. I think that a mistake, and I've had guys, you probably had them too in coaching, maybe, but I've had guys who have implemented way too much active negative dread and trying to intentionally make the girl feel uneasy or insecure. And then it backfired big time,
Mm.
like backfired big time. Like the girl just like absolutely cheats with a guy who's got enough decent value and who just made her feel good, or she just finally loses her shit and dumps him. You know what I mean? And then
Oh
the
yeah.
guy's like, "Oh, I was listening to some content creator who told me to do all this basically toxic game stuff, and it blew up in my face." And so I think guys got to be. That's what guys, and I know you don't advise guys do excessively toxic things, but
No.
it's understanding the nuances of the dread thing is really important, because so you don't do that. So you don't, as a guy, go, "Oh, you know what? I've been too much of a nice guy. Let me be like a piece of shit now." Like,
Yeah.
and then it just like blows up the other way. And it's like, no, no, you went too far.
Well, see, I think that's the difference with the kind of stuff that you and I put out, Paul,
Yeah,
versus some of the other PUA type stuff. Is
right.
that a lot of the other PUA type stuff out there is just it's tricks and tactics that they might work in the
Short
initial
term.
stage,
Yeah.
right? But if it's not a part of who you are, if the game is not, if you are not the game, it's women are going to see through it. It's not going to work, or it's going to end up not working the way you hope. And so what I think typically what you and I teach is just good social skills.
Yep.
And being a
That-
somewhat likable person that other people want to hang around with, and they're like, yeah, I gotta have a beer with that guy, right? Like
yeah.
that's basic solid game that you can easily make as a part of who you are, that won't go away in 10 or 20 years if you don't let it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's it. It's, you know, not that all POA is bad, of course, but it's just
No.
that a lot of guys focus on being the persona of a particular person rather than being themselves. And so when the persona, you can be a separate person for an evening or while you're at the club talking to a bunch of women, getting numbers. You can be a different guy than you on the first few dates. But once you start getting into it with a girl, if you want to keep that girl around, guess what? You got to start the who you are is going to start coming through the surface. And if who you are isn't congruent with your pickup guy persona, you're fucked. You're in big trouble. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And
Yeah,
that's what a
women are
lot
gonna
of
see
guys run
right through that. Well, that was one of my biggest takeaways when I read the book The Game. You know,
into.
the book The Game is a phenomenal book, but
Yeah.
what you find is that a lot of the pickup artists, they were easily picking up chicks on the weekend and banging them, but they couldn't keep these chicks around longer than, you know, a fling or here or there. And they
Right.
were miserable. They all wanted a deeper connection with some of these chicks. They developed
Always.
one-itis. They would go into depression. They start doing a bunch of drugs and stuff. It's like,
Yep.
it's not sustainable.
No. No, you have to have a strong inner game or else all this other stuff doesn't really matter. They just become temporary band-aids. I'm gonna go through the super chats real quick. I will co-sign that. Smash the like button, everybody.
It's alpha, guys. Alpha.
It's Paulapalooza. Nice, nice. Wolfpack checking in. Great value, guys. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for the
That's
$5
that's
super.
Shreddy Eddie. He's a little bit of a legend in the business. If you guys listen quietly, you can still hear the sounds of weights clanking out there.
Nice, nice. We got
Fucking
ourselves
shredded.
another
Yeah.
Jack.
He's like he's in
bro.
he's in his 60s and he's fucking killing it. Yeah.
Hell yeah, love that. Let's see. I find meditating before reading a book, I absorb much more information. Yep, that would be true because you get your mind in that receptive state. That's pretty
You know, if
good.
you guys listen to an audiobook while you're reading too, you retain a lot of it. Alex Hormozy likes to talk about that a lot.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. We got the super pilot ish, double the Pauls, double the truth. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Him and I just got together recently. He was passing through Michigan, and we just decided to go grab a bite, more or less. Well, I was fasting that day, so I grabbed a diet soda, or Coke Zero, rather.
Yeah.
See, what do we got here? Guys will continue to need to try when the state they maintain to keep her isn't the guy's natural state. Yeah, sure.
Yep.
We got a little hypergamy doesn't care reference. That's nice.
True. She doesn't care.
Yep. Yep. So let's see here. A lot of comments. They want to keep going. How's your day going? Mine's pretty good.
Can't complain. Can't complain.
Thank you. Thank you.
Streaming for a living.
Yeah, we'll address yeah, exactly. We'll address the hypergamy doesn't care part. I like this one. A lot of people look at hypergamy as a deterministic sort of thing, and I have something called the female law of sexual selection, which I have it worded better than what I'm going to remember now on the stream because I wrote it down. But it basically is that there's a constant cost benefit analysis. So like when a girl makes a yes decision, that's in the line of sexual dynamics, whether it's go on the date with you or sleep with you, it's because she perceives in her emotions that the reward is bigger than the risk or potential consequences. If so, the yes decisions means that there's more reward than risk or consequences. No decisions mean that there's some sort of risk or consequences that she is perceiving at an emotional level as being higher than the reward. And so, that explains a lot of pretty much all their behavior can be explained by that. Because a lot of women, for example, like with hypergamy, they'll be with a guy who tickles their brain as their hypergamous best, but due to their own poor mental health and social conditioning, they'll blow the relationship up because their anxiety gets too high. Then they settle with a guy who's not the hypergamous best, and then they resent the decision throughout the entire relationship, which is what you run into in a lot of marriages. So a lot of guys think, well, this hypergamy thing is deterministic, but they're missing the fact that it's based on her emotions.
Yeah.
It's an emotional feeling of a guy being the best, not an objective thing, but
Yeah.
I
Oh
feel
yeah. And that's kind of, I didn't word it the way you did, but that's sort of the concept in the book. Cause I do talk about hypergamy and how, you got to understand it, how it works and how women, if they really want both, they want, both alpha fucks, beta bucks, they want
sure.
to consolidate on both. If you don't want to end up in a dead bedroom, you can't have your primary dominant side be the beta side. That's going to land you in a dead bedroom situation. So
Right.
I talk about it like an 80-20 split. And then I also, one of the things I talk about in chapter 8 is the concept of an attraction scale, which is
Mhm.
something I learned from Doc Love and Corey Wayne. But because there's a lot of guys also think that the concept of genuine desire, like genuine burning desire, that we talk about in the space, that it's a constant thing too. Like, oh, she either has it or she doesn't. Well, that might be true in the moment, but it
In the
also depends
initial.
on how you're showing up in the relationship. And
Yep.
so on one day, she might not have genuine burning desire for her because she's got other shit going on or whatever.
Yep.
And so it's a sliding scale that you've got to, if you want to set the tone and lead the relationship, you have to be able to take a step back a little bit. I call it being lovingly detached, and be
Mhm.
able to sort of take keep an eye on your girl and see what she's doing. If she's not acting like she has genuine burning desire, like what's going on in the relationship that you can, you know, maybe
Yes.
set the, take the lead on in fixing.
Yeah.
And sometimes really simple stuff, and you just want to keep that attraction level above, above a 6
Yeah.
on the
Well,
scale, and that's, it's not, there's no scientific thing with that, but it's a good
it's
rule
just
of
a
thumb to,
model used to explain it. Like,
yeah.
and the explanation really for guys to understand is just that there's a baseline level of attraction that that her monkey brain has to respond to, that we can't control, really. But we don't it's interesting when you're looking at like persuasion, seduction, and what goes on underneath the surface versus on top of the surface. And so like a girl might have like the criteria for a girl's monkey brain to say yes and sleep with a guy is actually very low. You know what I mean? In fact, and they don't even know it half the time. So like a guy that just has attention, she just notices a particular guy and isn't having a negative reaction, the chances are her monkey brain has that guy on the scale of somebody I would sleep with. But she would never admit that if you were to ask her about it,
Right.
because her conscious mind doesn't think might think the guy's unattractive. She might be like, well, he's short and he's kind of goofy and this, and I don't like his hat or whatever. You know what I mean? His hat says red pill. I read that was a terrorist organization, or whatever. And so, like, she might have
I'm totally
all of
getting you demonetized with this hat, man. That's
right. Don't worry. I'm already shadow banned as shit. So it
yeah.
doesn't matter. No one's watching this stream except for the 5 people that commented. But no, I'm just kidding. But yeah, so I mean it's like her conscious mind might not recognize anything, but her monkey brain is responding. And all you need to use the kind of that, the 0 to 10 scale model is like, and I almost think it should be 0 to 30, but in a way, because it's like
Yeah.
it's a lot more, it's more incremental than even
Well,
0 to 10.
Doc
But
Doc Doc Love had it on a scale of 0 to 100.
oh, did
And
he? That's
yeah.
probably more useful. But I would
Yeah.
say like, but to keep it simple, 0 to 10, she just needs to be like a 5 out of 10, where she doesn't even think she's attracted to you, but she's responsive enough to have a conversation. And my mindset, like a lot of guys approach this the wrong way. They think because they're very deterministic, because their way of thinking is very negative and not geared towards success. They have a external locus of control. They feel victimized by the sexual marketplace and women. And so you hear these guys show up, well, all the chads, whatever
Yeah.
the infamous chads that are coming in and getting all the women, and then they can't get women. And it's like, well, that's not really how it works. If I show up and she is just responsive enough to talk to me, that's it. Done. Because I know that my skills in persuasion and seduction are likely going to take this to a sexual conclusion. she'll start off at a 5 and maybe even not liking me that much, but just being sort of responsive
Yeah.
into, okay, I guess I'm grabbing a drink with this guy. Okay, I'm laughing my butt off, and he's, oh wow, we're now making out. I guess we're going to my place. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's
Yeah.
kind of like,
Well, he invited me over to meet his dog, and one thing led to another. I don't know.
right. And you can, and what guys don't, a lot of guys don't understand, because we're too deterministic in our thinking, is that it is a sliding scale, that you raise that scale. You can be a girl's 10 out of 10 based on how you make her feel, and she will see you that way and ignore all of the chats. And that's, I've experienced that, seen that, train guys to make that happen in their lives. That's how hypergamy really works. And I think that, guys need to hear that message, because what that means is they have an internal locus of control now. If they show up and do the things that you outlined in the book and be that guy, it doesn't matter if they're not passing the 6-foot test. It doesn't matter if they go through some financial hardship. It doesn't, these things, these little external markers of attraction become less important. What matters is they're showing up, they're being the guy. And then of course they handle the girl in the right way. She sees him as a 10, you know what I mean? And we see this happen all the time, especially with girls when they hook up with criminals.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, when guys think it's impossible for women to love a guy like that, it's like, no, look at these prison guard females that break these guys out of jail, that ruin their, allow themselves to ruin their career because this guy was so charming that she's like, I'm going to put my career on the line for this guy. Right. Or, man, there was a documentary the other day, or it's maybe a part of a docuseries about this chick who robbed a Loomis, armored car in Vegas 20 years ago. And her and this guy have been on the lam because he was so persuasive and seductive with her that she was like, oh yeah, I'm going to totally ruin my life for this guy. Like, it's absolutely possible, guys, for you.
Yeah. It's really just, and it goes to show that their monkey brain instincts, which they are not aware of or understanding, combined with their emotions, are driving the decisions most of the time. And then they're using logic and reasoning to justify the reasons why. We do this too as men, but part of us training men through YouTube via or coaching or books is to train men to use their big brains. You know what I mean? Yeah. Recognize their instinct, get awareness of the instinct, then use the big smart brain to direct the instinct in the right direction. But women generally aren't doing training programs to teach them how to do that. So they're just responding to their feelings. And if you can just make those feelings happen and you learn the skills and the tools to do that, as well as the behaviors you need to have to be the guy who can do that, all of these little markers, like their checklists of on a dating app of I needs to be this tall and this, that, and whatever, like all that stuff, it just doesn't matter.
I posted that on X, I think yesterday, because there's that was it the guy from the whatever podcast retweeted a picture of this Asian chick with her big laundry list of whatever. And he's like, this is the dating market hellscape these days. And I was like, look, women, it's like a job interview, right? Like that you have the list of wants. It's a wish list. And if you are the right guy that can make them feel alive, like it all goes out the window and it doesn't matter. And like when women say they want a guy who's 6 feet tall, they just want a guy that's taller than them. Like get a girl that's 4'5", you'll be fine. You know, like
yes. That's it. That's it. I mean, it's guys never think to flip it. You know what I mean? Like
they never do.
The girl's like, oh, I need a guy who's 6 feet tall. Well, yeah, you're kind of a gangly ass 5'7" girl. So that makes sense. Like they don't think, they don't think of saying like reversing it. Yeah. You're a tall, goofy, gangly bitch. That's why you need a tall guy, like I'm looking for a 5'2" girl, like they just flipped it and were funny about it and nonchalant, didn't care. Like
you're too tall for me anyway, lady.
And then go on a date with them.
Right. One thing I want to talk about too, because you mentioned it, but a lot of guys also think that relationships are over as soon as you like lose a job or something bad happens. Because a lot of women will leave guys in their darkest moments. But if you are the kind of guy that doesn't let those type of life events bother you, and you have a plan, and she sees that you have a plan, like you're still that go-getter, she's not going to just like immediately fall out of attraction. It's, and a lot of guys, they always equate everything to money, but that's just because losers lead with their wallets. But
Yeah.
I address that stuff in the book too. Like what happens when life challenges come up, like when you start having kids like that, it changes the dynamic of your relationship, and you can let the passion go away if you fall into dad mode and just only do this stuff, and you stop doing the attractive stuff. So really a lot of that kind of stuff is reminders for guys to not let that stuff happen. And,
Mhm.
always
Oh yeah.
have some kind of direction for your life, and always be, have a plan for things.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's hard. Like I recognize the like, and women will not. And this is what guys got to understand, because we all grew up with mom. Like all of us did. Some of us had shitty moms or whatever. I had a pretty decent mom. More, she, like every mom, had her own set of challenges growing up that weren't, things that weren't good. But all in all, she did a good job, right? And mom wants to, you know, tell me I'm a good boy or whatever, and tell me, that things are going to be okay and all that shit. And everyone has their mom, or should have had a mom that did that. And then we as men grow up to be men, and I think a lot of guys don't understand that other women that are not your mom aren't going to do that, you know? And so like and especially the girl that is invested in a relationship with you, that is seen as a danger signal for her if she has to do that. So
Mhm.
like you might even have a female platonic friend who might be like, it's okay, and pat you on the head, but your girlfriend is not going to want to do that. If she does that, that's a dangerous, that's a signal to her monkey brain that her survival is in jeopardy. And
Mhm.
so a lot of guys, they face this crushing responsibility of having to financially provide and maintain security and maintain, abundance in the home. It is a crushing responsibility. Even if you have two incomes, even if she works, you are the guy who ultimately the responsibility falls on you. If her job, you know, if she is working, for example, and making a significant amount of money to maintain your lifestyle, your job becomes making her feel good about that, and making her feel secure, and making her, because that's not necessarily her default. I'm not saying she can't do it. I mean, there's plenty of times where guys actually stay at home guy, and the woman works and they're happy
I'm
and they're
trying to
good.
get Nurse Chick to be my sugar mama.
That's it, man.
She's getting her FNP right now. I'm like,
Yeah,
this is my
yeah.
retirement plan. So
Exactly.
yeah,
Pimp game, get a couple of nurse chicks, but
yeah.
they just bring home
Oh,
money.
write that
Start a
down.
cult, in fact. Let's do
Yes.
that. But I mean, but even if the case is that you're not the primary breadwinner for whatever reason, if those guys in those circumstances, there's still a crushing responsibility of maintaining that peace and that sense of security. So when she's feeling insecure and she has to go to work, she doesn't feel that way because of how you show up. So what that means is, okay, if you're the guy who's working and you lose your job or get laid off or something happens, you can't come back to the home and be like, I have all this anxiety about what just happened. I'm upset. I got this, I got that. I don't know what I'm going to do. All these things. And then she will try to be supportive, but her if she's a good woman, right? But her monkey brain is like, get the fuck out of there, take the children and run. Like the monkey brain is sending all the signals of you need to fucking do something to secure yourself. This guy's not going to do it. And you don't want that.
Mhm.
So if you lose that job, that happens to you, you are going to experience that crushing blow of that responsibility of maybe not being able to pay your bills next month or whatever. Like that could happen to you, but you need to handle that with your guy friends on your own in your coaching program. You need to come up with your frame and your plan, not show up in a mess of, a psychological and emotional mess to your girl, because that's what's going to cause it to end. It won't be the money and the loss of the job. It'll be because you were fucked up over it and couldn't get your shit together. And that signaled to her that you're a fucking problem and she needs to go. And then that's what causes it.
That you can't handle life.
Right.
This guy can't handle life. Why am I with this guy? Yeah. And that's a lot. That is a big responsibility that a lot of guys have too. And that's why it's important for guys to get in men's groups, whether you join Paul's group on school or whatever, and then, or my group on Telegram. Like, it's just good to be able to bounce this type of stuff off of other guys that have been through it. Cause guys will give you a plan. Guys are fixers. We're like, oh bro, this is how you hit the ground running. This is what you got to do. You go bring that shit to your girl. She's going to give you maybe some sympathy a little bit. And then then you're going to be putting all that baggage on her. And now she's going to feel like she's got to solve the problem. And women don't want to solve those problems, So it's like, it's just not her job. And once you realize that, you take that burden off her, bring it to the boys, like, you're going to have a much better life and a better relationship.
Right. That just reminds me, I have to do my ad. Thank you. You mentioned school. I got to do my thanks.
Got to do the business, guys.
I was so into our conversation, I almost forgot. So everybody has to suck it up and sit through my ad now. It's only 2.5 minutes. So we'll watch it real quick here. Oh, here's pressed it. Psychopaths are evil, but they are successful. And not because they're evil. They're successful because they're effective. The average man is drowning in overthinking, fear, people-pleasing, and hesitation, while the most ruthless personalities walk through life winning, while you are struggling and you are losing. But here's the truth. You don't need to be a psychopath to win. You just need to learn the traits that they mastered and use them without being immoral or having poor ethics. Focus so sharp that it cuts through distraction. Charm that bends social dynamics. Resilience that makes you unshakable. Ruthlessness, but with empathy for others. The ability to say no without guilt. Fearlessness in the moments that matter. Mindfulness that kills anxiety. And action taking that separates leaders from followers. This isn't about becoming a terrible person. It's about becoming powerful. Someone who leads, someone women trust and desire. Someone who commands his world instead of just reacting to it. And that's why I created the Psychopath's Playbook, a complete system for the good men, the non-psychopathic men, but for men who want the results without becoming evil and without wasting years of trying to figure it out alone. This is an inner game course that will allow you to tap into that thing that you have been missing, that thing that's inside of you that will allow you to make more money, seduce women, and succeed. If you're ready to unlock the traits that make the world's most effective men untouchable, click the link and get into the community. When this course drops, you will get your exclusive announcement, and you'll be on the list before it fills up. And together, we'll make you unshakable, undeniable, and unstoppable. This is where your old self ends and your rise begins. I'll see you there. All right.
Dark triad maxing. I love it.
Yeah, Do you like that AI edited commercial? It's pretty fun.
I was looking at that. I was like, this is all AI. This is awesome. Like, no way Paul did a fucking TED Talk.
No, I didn't do a TED Talk. It looked cool though, right?
Yeah, no, that was good. I was like, look at him up on stage there.
Yeah, I did some things. I mean, I tried to make it somewhat congruent, but that is definitely my girlfriend and I at the end. So that's not AI. And then okay, swimming in Miami, but like I don't have a cool shot with me in a shark like that, but I thought that looked cool.
Right. You got to have a shark in the video.
I know, you got to have a shark, right? That's what I'm thinking. Now I do have like pistols with suppressors. I do have obviously
you're not sniping people from a rooftop in Manhattan, though.
Not today. You know what I mean? I was in the sniper section on a deployment, but that was definitely not Iraq, wherever that was taken.
That looked like New York City. I was like, is Paul moonlighting now as a fucking hitman? Like,
I know, but I should.
Good money in it. It's good money.
That's it. That's what I hear. Yeah. So I don't know. I thought it was pretty cool. Had me playing. I have a kid. He's older now though, so he's not interested in catching a football. He's in the marching band.
Ah,
So I had to AI generate some kids to throw football.
right. There you go. Like you're coaching the local team.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. This is good though. I mean, you used to have to spend like 20 grand for an ad like that and then do all the shots and take, a couple of weeks to produce it. And now it's literally, if you know how to do the right prompts and use the right systems, you can make it in AI. I think it's pretty sick.
That
You
is,
know?
yeah, it has made content creation much easier now.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I do have, you notice I didn't put myself in a Ferrari. I put myself in my Dodge Ram 2500 that I do actually have. So,
Yeah, yeah.
so I try to keep it sort of.
You got it. You do have a photo with you and MLD though in a Ferrari.
We
You
do.
guys rented a Ferrari
We
back
do.
a
That
couple
was
years
fun.
ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Just ripping. It's fun to rip around in. In Michigan, it's like, I don't know. Yeah, I could get something like that, but then it's like, where am I putting it? You know what I mean?
Right.
In the winter, I know there's guys that do it, but it's just not really in my cup of tea at the moment.
No,
you know,
it's not
but
practical.
yeah, I call it a Michigan supercar. Is like a big ass truck that you can off road, on road, and do the snow with. That's kind of the Michigan supercar,
Yeah.
But well, yeah. So for everybody listening, though, that is you have to be in my community to get access to the course when I open enrollment. So that's probably going to happen after Christmas. I'll open the enrollment, close the enrollment. I'm limiting the attendance so that I can focus on answering questions and running people through scenarios on our coaching calls for the course, because the idea is it's an inner game course, but it's going to build your mental resilience. And it's not just talking about it like on YouTube. There's actual, which is fine. I mean, but I do that for free. I don't need to charge you money for a course to talk about things. Um, what it actually is drilling and doing, exercises and tools and coming up with a mental fitness plan, and then also running through scenarios where your inner game gets you in trouble and you're lacking some of those, you could say, tools, of becoming more successful. And a lot is what I found was that a lot of those tools of being successful, a lot of psychopaths have it just because they have a reduced amygdala response and some of these other things. So they're not as anxious, they're not as fearful, they're more able to take action. They tend to be more resilient, less responsive to emotional or physical pain. All of those things can be like superpowers. Obviously, there's a huge negative if you actually are a psychopath. There's a bunch of problems you run into. But most guys aren't that guy. Most guys are too nice or struggle with making decisions or over analyzing or having that not that resilience, or being too emotionally responsive, or not emotionally responsive enough in the right ways, because they're burying emotions. Like there's all kinds of things, and guys are always asking me for more inner game work. Well, here it is. So this is going to give guys practical. It's not just, meditate and journal, which is all good tools, but now pay me a bunch of money for that, right? This is tapping into different mental models and tools and training those tools in order to get better, much like training programs for a place in different areas of military and agency will train people to be able to handle missions and become more successful. Although you are getting selected for it and expected to come in with some of those ingredients, but you know, you come in with the ingredients, and then if you're in special operations, special missions, guys who go off to the CIA, different things, you're selected, but then they train you, right? There's a bunch of things that you do to train in order to become the guy you need to be for a mission. And I'm going to provide that for anybody who's in my course. So anyway, that's my fun ad.
It's funny. My son and I have been watching Dexter. Like
Okay.
we've
Yeah.
been binge watching Dexter, and one of the things I point out to my son is because what's his name, Michael C. Hall, the guy who plays Dexter. He's so good at playing the psychopath
I know.
that have you watched that series?
Yeah, yeah.
It
I didn't watch the second redo. I felt it got repetitive at the end, as a lot of series do, but I
yeah.
loved it in the beginning though. I really did enjoy
But what's
Dexter.
so funny is like the writers of the show did a very good job of having women sort of fawning all over him because of his psychopathic nature to not be reactive and be
Mhm.
very indifferent to things. And
Yep.
like the women just responded well to it. I kept pointing out to my son, I'm like, obviously it's Hollywood, but I'm like, this is why it works. And I would point all that kind of stuff out.
Yeah. Mhm.
There's a reason chicks like that shit. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I'm looking at some of these chats here, but I'm not seeing any serious questions. I want to I don't know. A lot of people are answering their own questions in their comments, so I don't necessarily need to address those. Anyway, okay, cool. That's fine. I do want to. There's something here. Sorry, I'm getting my list of questions. So, a couple more things I want to get into before we close off. We'll close off soon. Um, so, what do you think? Like, what beliefs about women do you think men need to like immediately unlearn?
Oh man, I think a lot of guys are just, they're the romantics, right? And so, and a lot of guys think that if they are constantly showering their girl with compliments and all that kind of stuff, that that's what's going to keep her around longer. One of the things that we talked
Yeah,
about earlier is the idea of constantly reassuring her that you're never going to cheat and all this kind of stuff. Like that's not necessarily what women need to hear. They might want to hear that kind of stuff on occasion, but it'll end up like backfiring on you and stuff like that. So
mhm,
really, it just you got to get rid of all the nice guy stuff, and a big part of that is understanding effective communication
right,
techniques. So one of the things I talk about in Keep Your Bitch, I actually learned from you, Paul, is the Luca model of
oh yeah,
communication,
mhm,
which I brushed over it in Keep Your Bitch. I was like, yeah, this is how you do it. This is what the acronym is. But
uh,
I go into depth on it in Get Her to Fuck You Again, because
nice,
that's the one where guys are in a failing relationship and they really need to learn communication if they even have a hope of turning things around. And what's
yeah,
awesome about your Luca model is that it puts you in a position of authority when you're speaking to women, as opposed to deering, which we don't want to do, because that puts you below her, and now
yes,
you're sort of like pleading your case to the judge. And if she's looking down on you, she just doesn't respect you. And if she doesn't respect you, she's not going to love you. She's going to fall out of love very quickly. So
yeah,
guys need to learn a lot of that kind of stuff. Not be so reactive. Not take what she says at face value. There's a lot of different things that guys can. They need better tools, I would
yeah.
say.
No, I think it's a good way of saying it. Definitely need better tools. Well, I think that you said that very well. It's just that it's guys. We're kind of action focused in a way. We wanna like earn something. So it's like guys think that if I try harder, do more, and do more to please her, do more to make her feel more comfortable,
Mm.
then she's gonna love me more. And it's like,
It's the happy life paradigm. Yeah,
right.
yeah, I talk
And
about that in the book too. It's ruined more relationships than it's helped.
yeah, and what they're doing is they're doing a bunch of things that they think should get the response, and they're not doing it with what I call tactical empathy, meaning they're not paying attention to what her response is. They're just like, I'm doing all these things, so she should want to sleep with me. Like the guy who's like in a dead bedroom, he's like, I just cleaned the whole house and I put some scented candles in the house and, you know, picked the kids up or did whatever. I made dinner. So she should want to blow me. My birthday is next week. And then she's like, I have a headache. And he's like, I did all the things, like he
Yeah.
gets like flips out. He's not using tactical empathy to recognize where she's at on her desire scale and recognizing that she ain't there and that
Mhm.
his efforts aren't getting her there. So he has to do something else. And sometimes it's challenging the person. Sometimes it is a conversation. Sometimes it's withdrawing or removing your energy. Sometimes it's just being the more attractive guy who removes his energy, which causes her to go, huh, maybe I should start working for his attention again. You know what I like? Because
Yeah.
they're not paying attention to her response, they're only paying attention to their own effort. And
Yeah.
so
Well, that's
guys,
the covert contract stuff that a
yes,
lot of guys do, and that builds up a lot of resentment. And then their resentment shows up in their body language and their tone and like their
which is
snarky attitudes and
anti-seductive, right?
all that kind of shit, which just further just compounds the problem. And that's one of the big things too that guys need to eliminate those things. Like if you're doing anything for your wife that you don't generally like to do or you don't want to do, fucking don't do it. Stop doing it right now.
Right.
And if you're going to do stuff, maybe stuff needs to get done. Maybe the trash does need to go on. Maybe the dishes do need to get done. Do it because it needs to be done, not because you're trying to make her, get a reaction out of her. Because any of that kind of stuff, that resentment is just going to further kill that attraction, and you'll never turn your relationship around if you're in a place of resentment.
Yeah.
You'll never do it.
Yeah. And so that kind of leads to a next question is, what do you think makes a woman feel like the man she's with is irreplaceable? Like, how would you answer that?
Well, when he's her best hypergamous option, that's
Yeah, right. I agree.
But that's the thing. Like being her best hypergamous option, that's a daily question, right? Like she's always going to, in the back of her mind, her monkey brain, like you like to say, right? Her monkey brain is always asking, is this the best I can do? And so, yeah, a lot of that just means working on yourself and always working on self-improvement and trying to be the best version of you. And that's why I say, like, it's her job to keep you. It's your job to be a man worth keeping. One thing that I also talk about in the book too, is that sometimes women are really shitty at keeping a man. And you know what I mean? Like you could be leveling up and being the best version of you and always going for the next thing. And, trying to get the new PR in the gym and all that kind of stuff. And she's just really shitty at keeping you. At that point, you need to evaluate whether you want to be in this relationship or not. And you need to end things,
Yeah.
But yeah, generally, I think that's really it is always being a woman needs to look at you and go, yeah, no, he's the best I can do. that's really the key there.
Yeah. So I wanted to pivot off that, but I am going to address this guy's question because he asked it twice. And so Simply Deep, 1985. I don't understand your question. So you got to elaborate. So he's asking, can a woman or your woman go overboard seducing you depending on the circumstance? So you maybe give an example, like if you can, real quick, because I'm going to pivot, then maybe I'll answer your question, then we can end the stream on that.
Yeah, because I was going to say, like, do you hate sex? Because if my woman's trying to seduce me, it's pretty easy.
Well, but maybe right. But maybe it's not that hard to seduce me. You know what I mean? Especially like my girl's really hot, so she pretty much just has to show up wearing a burlap sack.
My girl gets up my girl gets up on like a Monday morning because she's with me during the week now, and she'll get up and she'll go and get coffee and bring it to me naked. Like, that's pretty easy.
Done.
It's not even that hard.
Seduced already. We're gonna have sex now. Yeah. Well, I think maybe he's alluding to someone with more of an anxious attachment style, where like I had somebody I was a girl in my past I was seeing who and I'm going to read a scenario, but I'll just finish the anecdote. A girl in my past, for example, she wasn't a bad girl, really. Just we weren't completely compatible, so I broke that off. But she was very anxious though, and that was part of the problem. Like I remember one day I had gone to the gym and she showed up and left a note on my car. And it was supposed to be cute, but it wasn't cute. It was almost like, to me, I'm like, you're checking to see if I'm at the gym. You know what I mean? It was like too much, right? Like she was very like anxious. And one time we had gone out, like I'd been basically, as almost like most of my relationships, it was purely sexual for a few months and we never went anywhere. And then we decided to go somewhere and I had to pull her out of a bar. She was going to fight a girl for looking at me. And I'm like, dude, what is wrong with you? You know, like
That's a bit much. The note on the card thing, Nurse Chick used to do that when I'd have to fly back to San Diego. She
yeah.
would go to the airport in Grand Junction and find my car and tape like a love note to the windshield. And I love that shit. I'm like, oh, cool, creepy stalker. I love it.
I
So
mean, it's okay. It depends on the
it's called
context, but
genuine desire, Paul.
yeah, yeah, it depends on the context, but like in this one particular case, though,
Yeah.
it was a lot. It wasn't just the note, but it was like the culmination of like a note could be a cute thing too, like in the case of Nurse Chick, but
Yeah.
this was like her overall behavior was very anxious, like very much like I know you're gonna cheat on me. Like
Ah.
I remember like in like crazy stuff. Like we were at a we went to, we went to I don't even know why I'm telling. Like I should never tell stories, bro. Like my relationship stories are crazy. Some of them. Yeah. So I'm like
We keep it anonymous. It's all
yeah,
right.
yeah. I go to a TJIF Fridays, and she's like, oh, "Why am I at this? It's just a Fridays, right? We just go to meet up. It was after something." And she was like, and I had a bunch of meetings. It was like when I did real estate, and she was like under the table, like grabbing my shit. She's like, "I need to suck your dick right now," right? And so she was doing all this, and I'm like, "Okay." So we end up outside, like in the bushes, right? And she's just like going at it. And then it came to the conclusion of like the reason why is because she was trying to detect if I had sex with somebody else. So her dread was
That's
wanna
wild,
like
bro.
kinda like, "Let me smell your dick," you know, like, it was one of
Yeah,
those situations,
wild.
dude, and I'm like, "What?" You know, like,
Actually,
"You're out of control right now."
I actually heard that the theory in evolutionary biology or whatever, evolutionary
Yeah,
psychology of why men want to go down on chicks is to detect if there's semen in the vagina. And I'm
that
like,
is interesting. Yeah, I've
that's
heard that
fucking gross. I don't know if it's true.
also
It's
gross.
fucking gross, man. Like, fucking,
So
there's better ways of figuring that out, bro.
after a girls' night out, "Let me go down on you."
Yeah.
Just, like, freaking out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was bad news. Anyways, we're gonna not give any more personal examples for the rest of the show. Let's see what happens with this guy's scenario. So he says, "Here's a scenario. You and your lady are alone somewhere quiet where no one is around, and she wanna do something spontaneous, and she has you aroused, and she starts undressing you and doing stuff."
Oh, public sex is awesome.
Yeah, it
Go
is.
for it, bro. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Have fun.
I did a whole episode on why you need to bang your girl in the back of your truck.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
an hour
You have a
long
truck, that's a definite thing you have to do.
and an hour long podcast on just that. Yeah.
Just that topic.
Yep.
Well, I think it's an hour well spent, in my opinion.
Well,
on that.
really the idea was being spontaneous and not
Yeah.
just being the boring guy that's always banging her in your bedroom. Like, you know, and what inspired that episode was I think it was last Christmas. Nurse Chick brought me to like her company Christmas party, and afterwards, I was like, "Hey, let's go." You know, I put her in my truck, and I just drove out to the small little airport we have out here in the middle of nowhere, and I was like, "Let's." I just pulled off to the side of the road in the desert, and we just went at it. You know, because you got to have that spontaneity.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Spontaneity is a good way to inspire that variety that you need for a sense of variety. If she can predict how every sexual situation is going to go before it happens, then you're not doing your job enough to create variety in your sexual situations. She should have it's the not knowing what's going to happen creates anticipation. Anticipation is what inspires dopamine. So we'll get into that in a second. But in his follow up comment in that case, give her one hell of a performance. If she does that, some dudes would be nervous in those situations because it's her, but you're in a place that's not your house. Yeah, I mean, don't get arrested, don't lose your job. That's pretty much the criteria. Don't cause grave bodily harm or injury. Those are my three criterias. Everything else in my relationship is fucking go time, right?
It's on the table.
Exactly. And again, that goes back to you have to decide, you guys listening, you have to decide where your personal boundaries are with things like public sex or whatever. It's up to you. But I will say this, it goes back to variety. You have to create a sense of variety because we'll go now. This actually is a good segue into the sex thing I want to breach a little bit before we close out our little stream here. And it's that so red pill, I think it's a Rollo Tomasi saying the sex is the glue that holds things together. So let's break that. I'm going to break that down a little bit on a neurological level. So love involves, like, love is kind of a container word, which is why I don't use it very often unless there's a qualifier. But love from a neurochemical sense is a neurochemical reaction that causes you to feel bonded to the other person. Now, for a guy, that bonding is both a combination of oxytocin and vasopressin. And with some history together, it's beta endorphin. So beta endorphin is like comfort, like feeling like that's your person, that kind of thing. That's not sexual desire, but it's comfort. That is necessary for an LTR. But the sexual desire and closeness, well, the closeness and the feelings of closeness comes from the oxytocin. And for us men, it's vasopressin. Now, women have oxytocin. They do not have a vasopressin response to a guy that they feel bonded to. If they get a vasopressin response, they no longer feel attracted to the guy. All right. Vasopressin is the type of love feeling it's a protective feeling like, retroactive jealousy actually comes from vasopressin. Feeling like you want to protect her, take care of her, open a door for her, make her orgasm, whatever. You know what I mean? All of these things come from vasopressin. A woman doesn't have that for you. So this is how men and women love differently, like on a neurological scale, right? And so their other element of sex is norepinephrine and dopamine. So dopamine is inspired when you're getting to the thing. So the sex hormone says I'm horny, and then that making the sex happen is very dopamigenic. Well, when you're in a long-term relationship or marriage and you just roll over and throw your dick in her, or she has a headache and then you go and grunt and roll back over, you've taken away the dopamine aspect of the so the sexual anticipation now goes away. Well, most guys got a problem, which is they've taken away that sexual anticipation, and then also they're letting the woman dictate the sex in the relationship. So my personal relationships is kind of what I recommend is I take that power away from the girl, and not in a violent way, but it's like if she's going to be with me, she understands that I dictate when and how when sex happens. She doesn't. She's not allowed. We're our standard in our relationship is we're not allowed to say no. Nobody says no. The word no is not allowed. What you can say is, I have explosive diarrhea. I'm not sure this is a good idea. There has to be a discussion, and there's a safe word that we use. She uses. I don't use the safe word. And if there's
my safe word is keep going. Just kidding.
And so that's the rules of my relationship. But I mean, you decide in your own relationships. But the point is, she doesn't control the sex. The reason why that's important is because with familiarity and a rise in beta endorphin, which is a requirement for that comfort bonding, the dopamine and the norepinephrine, which is the good stress, is harder to stimulate. Women make decisions based on emotions first, to include sex. So if she's not getting that dopamigenic stimulation, she doesn't feel like having sex very often now. And the problem with that is sex is the largest stimulant for oxytocin. Oxytocin is the main thing that makes her feel desire towards you. So it's like, which comes first, chicken or the egg? Usually what happens is guy gets married, familiarity of the relationship reduces the dopamine and the norepinephrine to cause that anticipation for sex. And then she just isn't in the mood for sex as often. And by not being in the mood for sex as often, she doesn't stimulate oxytocin as often. And oxytocin is very fleeting. If you're not stimulating that on a regular basis, it comes back down to baseline. So her oxytocin goes back down to baseline. It's like she's single again. And she's not really in desire for you because you're familiar. And then now it becomes duty sex. You know what I mean? And then that, and only having sex once every 3 weeks or 2 weeks or something, or once every month, it's like that's not enough to really increase that oxytocin to make her have that hypergamous desire for you again. Now, in hypergamy, right, you imprint. So if you were the best she's ever had in the relationship, not just sexually, but she feels that way just in general, you stimulate and imprint her brain as you being that guy, which is why girls get alpha widowed, right? But what you guys run into is they've alpha widowed themselves by their old self. Right. So like they turn into a guy in her mind is not representative of the guy she fell in love with. She wants the guy she fell in love with again, but because unfortunately you guys let her control the sex because that is what we do. Okay. Unless you do something different, the sex went down. The desire went down because there's no more oxytocin. She loves you because of beta endorphin, but she's not in love with you. And she wants you to be the guy she first met. But what she doesn't realize is you may actually even still be that guy. But because she doesn't have the oxytocin, because you're letting her control the sex, she doesn't feel that way. She doesn't feel like you're that guy, even though you're still the same guy. And so I'm only referencing this, giving a little lecture on this to make the point about, getting her to fuck you again, that book, this book too, and all the things that a lot of it is revolving around. How do we get her to still want to fuck you and keep being with you? Right.
Yeah.
And the reason that's so important is not because we're these crazy, misogynistic, sex crazed bald men, except for you, you're going to have hair here soon, who just want to abuse women on the internet. We're doing this because if anybody, women and men, expect their long-term relationship to work out at all, you have to be fucking. There is the easiest solution that women will, on the internet, of course, places like Twitter, avoid like the plague and cry about like there's some sort of slavery that men are trying to put them into, is just have sex. Like that's the easiest solution to a lot of problems because it stimulates all of these neurochemicals that give you the ingredients of having genuine desire, love for each other, so that you guys can be happy, solve problems together, overcome obstacles, make plans, do all the things. She has to feel like she wants to do all the things. Guys, you have vasopressin. You don't necessarily have to feel like it. What you do is go, I made a commitment to this woman and I'm going to do the right things as a man. And I'm sticking it out for the kids. And you do all that rationalization because you have a sense of duty to her, because that's what vasopressin does. It creates a sense of duty. She doesn't have that sense of duty to you. Do you know what I mean? And so the best she'll have without sex is beta endorphin, which means like she cares about you, but she doesn't really desire you. And she doesn't really want to go through the effort of leaving, but she doesn't want to go through the effort of keeping you either. You know what I mean? And so you have to maintain sex. And I just wanted to mention that point because you make a point in the book and you have entire books dedicated to it. It's not because you're a sex crazed pervert, although you are.
I mean, I am. Yeah, that's great for sure.
But it's because you coach guys just like I do, and you understand that this is the most surefire way of destroying a relationship is to let the sex go away. The most surefire way of making the highest probability of keeping a relationship is to have a good sex life with that person. I mean, would you say?
Yeah. Oh, no, definitely. And one of the things that I call it heat, healthy emotional anticipation and tension. And you've got to keep that alive to keep her enthusiastically wanting to have that sex. And I don't mention that acronym in Keep Your Bitch. I talk about it in like all my other books, though. But one thing I do have in Keep Your Bitch is the concept of a sexual narrative. You want to create this virtual world that only you two live in.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a concept I got from Royce, honestly. Like Royce is like, you want to create this mystical world that only you two live in.
That's funny. I call it idealized isolation in my frame model.
Okay. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. So same kind of thing. And so if you can create that for your girl, like she's going to enthusiastically want to continue to have sex. And then that just the more you guys have sex, the better the relationship. ends up. One thing that a lot of people talk about too online, they'll say like, what do you know about relationships? Like, I've been married for 30 years. I'm like, oh, that's wonderful. How's the sex? And I'm always a dick about it because
Yeah,
most people, they think longevity by itself is a
it's
flex, and
success and it's not,
it's absolutely not. And if
right?
you're not regularly banging each other's brains out after 30 years, like what do you friends? Are
Yeah,
you
right. What
roommates
is
now?
that?
Like
Not a relationship anymore, right? It's a
no.
friendship. Well, and so that frame of idealized isolation, what that does, or and Royce, that's nice that Roy. I didn't actually catch that concept from Royce. I got it from somewhere else, but it was actually what I got it from was a little bit more nefarious. It was because I have a psychology background, like way before Red Pill, right? And
Right.
it was a observation of cult behavior. Not that I want to, and then also what we did with persuasion, what people will do on missions with key leader engagement, stuff like that, is creating this bubble, and then the pickups artists talk about it doing it temporarily, like in the pickup scenario. And I
Yeah.
realized, okay, now cults do it in an abusive way because they isolate financially, physically, tell people to cut their family members off, stuff like that, which I don't ever recommend you do in a relationship. But it's the mindset of you and her against the world that's really important. If you don't create that bubble of you and her, what happens is, she's going to look, especially today with the global sexual marketplace and the internet, she is going to look at her friends who have a counter narrative to your relationship because the social narrative is against relationships, right? So her friends, her influences, and the internet is going to give her all these messages to tell her that a better life is over the fence and around the corner away from your relationship, and that you need to do all these toxic things and these stupid things in order to have true happiness and to be able to win the sexual competition with your girlfriends. And if you don't create a bubble with you and her like that, what happens is she'll be in a struggle to, do I gravitate towards that? Do I get influenced by the frame of everybody else and move away from the frame of my relationship? When you create that bubble, she sees those things in it, and it creates a different reaction in her brain. She goes, oh yeah, they're pursuing something that's going to destroy their lives. That makes me happier and feel more safe and confident in my relationship. Oh, they're doing that. Yeah, that makes me feel better. And so now when the girlfriends have some dumb story about some bullshit they're dealing with or doing, she looks at that as like, yeah, like I'm glad I'm not them. I'm glad I'm not
Mhm.
doing what they're doing. Oh, that Instagram video reel of a chick on vacation throwing her ass around everywhere. I know she's banging a gross fat guy for money to have that Instagram. That's not what I want in
Yeah.
my life. Like, holy shit, I'm so glad I'm in my relationship. So you create that bubble. And what that does, and part of that bubble is a beta endorphin association to sex. In other words, the comfort of beta endorphin starts to get compromised when sex goes down. That's what you want to create. So like if my girl goes through, she doesn't have, if we're not having sex for whatever reason after like our cutoff's about 3 days maybe, she starts to get nervous. She starts to get like, I don't know if I'm with something, we need to have sex. Like something is up with our relationship right now. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's like it kicks into her brain like, wait a second, my safety and security is compromised now because where's the sex? What's happening? And then she's like, oh shit, you know what? Started my period the other day, and then I was sick the other day, and that's why we haven't had it. It's like, oh fuck, I better blow them. It kicks in. Like
Yeah.
that's the dread, that is a positive dread without manipulation, because she associates sex with comfort of a stable relationship, which she should, because that is the requirement for a stable relationship. So that's what my advice to you guys listening is to be able to do that. And that's why you, Paul, write this stuff in books and have some time and energy dedicated to keeping this going. It's not just, oh, I want to get sex out of the relationship. If I get a girl, if I'm taking care of her, she better, get my dick wet. Like it's not all selfish. It's actually not selfish at all. It could be, and it's okay if it is, but it's really not though. It's more about this relationship isn't a relationship if sex isn't happening.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, definitely. Another way without sex that I try to help create that narrative for Nurse Chick and I is she likes to get dressed up really fancy periodically. And we live out on fucking cow country. Like no one dresses fancy out here. And even if you go to like the fancier restaurants, people are still wearing fucking jeans and stuff, right? But we'll dress up fancy and we'll go there. And then I'll just look around. I'll go, let's pretend that we're better than everybody else. and then I start pointing it, or we'll point at someone and say, what's their story? And just make up stories about other people.
Yeah.
Like, it's
yeah, that's fun. Yeah.
So we do that kind of stuff on dates all the time. And she's such a quiet, reserved person that it's fun to bring that out of her, because she's a hoot, but if you ever met her in person, you'd be like, man, she's really quiet, Paul. And we'll be like, yeah, that's the best part. But I'm just kidding. But I could draw that out of her, and she makes some of the wildest jokes, and she makes up all the random stories about people, and it's just fun. And it's just us two in this bubble, against the world, making fun of everybody.
That's good. That's great. That's awesome. Well, I think that's a good spot to leave it at. I think that we had a good stream today. Hopefully you guys liked it. Throw some little thumbs up or little flames or in the chat or whatever, little comments. Let me put this in so you can purchase Paul's book. It's already in the description. The Amazon link is already in the video description. So you can purchase his book there. I read it. I co-sign it. It's good. I just posted it in the chat too. For those of you guys who are a little bit lazy about it, that's okay. My community link is in the video description as well. If you want to get in on that inner game course, that's going to drop in a few weeks here. And that's it. So it was awesome having you on, man. We got to do it more often.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on. Oh, and by the way, guys, I have a new Twitter X account. I got banned a month ago. I honestly think it was a glitch, because they just announced like a month ago that they were handing the algorithm over to Grok, and I think Grok was like, "Hey, I think you're a bot," and I'm like, "I'm not a bot," and they're like, "No, you're a bot." And I'm like, the fuck? So anyway, I have a new account. It's called Best Men's Pod. So you can find me on X there now.
Nice. Cool, man. All right. Well, I'm going to hit end on the stream. Make sure you guys do your due diligence of subscribing to both of our channels. All right. Later.
Bye, guys.